All right, so we're looking at 5.2 today, adding and subtracting decimals. May get it in 5.3, we'll see. So if they give you the problem this way, 27.486 plus 6.37. All right, you can set it up vertically like we have right here. Make sure you line up your decimal places. Make sure you line up your place values accordingly. And then from there, you just add from right to left. 6 plus 0 is 6. 8 plus 7 is 15, excuse me, but you carry your 1. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 3 is 8. And your decimal, once again, should line up. Then 7 plus 6 is 3. Carry your 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. And that will be your answer. All right, any questions? All right, same thing happens here. To give us the problem horizontally, we can set it up vertically, which is what we got going on here. You make sure you line up your decimals. Don't forget, if you don't see a decimal, they assume you know it's to the right of the rightmost digit. So that 43 has a decimal behind the 3. And then you notice with our setup, you have zeros where you need placeholders. And once again, they don't carry value. They're just placeholders. And helps you to add, helps you with the addition process, make it simpler, if nothing else, in your organization. So then you're going to add 6 plus 0, 0 is going to be 6. 2 plus 0 is 2. Then you have zeros right here. So there should be a 0 right here. 7 plus 3 is 10. That's right here. Carry your 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 3 is 7. Plus 6 is 13. Carry your 1. 1 plus 4 plus 1 is 6. And then the 8 didn't have anything to add to, so we just bring it down. All right, any questions? Okay, same thing goes with subtracting. You line up your decimal, line up your place values. We have 0.2868 minus 0.056. And since there are 4 decimal places here, 3 here, we added a 0 as a placeholder. And then so you'll do 8 minus 0, which is 8. 6 minus 6 is 0. 8 minus 5 is 3. And then 2 minus 0 is 2. Once again, just like with addition, you just add from right to left. In this case, we're subtracting from right to left. All right, scroll up. All right, so here, this is the problem. 139 minus 2863, or 28.63. Line up your decimals and add your zeros as placeholders. So here we're going to have to borrow. You cannot subtract 3, or you cannot take 3 out of 0. So we go to the next digit. Once again, we have a 0, can't take 6 out of 0, and you can't borrow from 0, so we go to the next digit. So we can take 1 from this 8, and that one from this 9, and it turns into 8. And then that 1 is 10 in reference to the value to the right of it. So we can borrow from that. That'll turn into 9. And then once again, we have 10 over here because the 1 that you took from the 10th place is 10 in comparison to the 100th place. All right. So now that you have something to borrow from, and to subtract from, 10 minus 3 is going to be 7. 9 minus 6 is 3, which is decimal. 8 minus 8 is 0. 3 minus 2 is 1, and then bring down the other one. All right, questions? Any questions? All right, so let's do it again. All right, so borrowing again, we're going to have to borrow again. They give us this, 192.4 minus 89.387. Use zeros as placeholders. The 192 goes to the 10th decimal place, or the 10th place. And the 89.387 goes to the thousandths place, so need to add those zeros. So once again, I cannot subtract or take 7 out of 0, so I go to this next value, have a 0 again. So I go here, and that'll turn to 3. That'll give me 10. Need to borrow again. That turns into 10. Of course, this is 9 now, because remember, you're always borrowing 1. So now we have 10 minus 7, which is 3. 9 minus 8 is 1. 3 minus 3 is 0. Now here we're looking at trying to take 9 out of 2. Can't do that. So this 9, we're going to borrow from this 9. It turns into 8. And then that turns into 12. Because we took 10 from, we took 1 from that 9, which is 10. But you're adding that 10 to the 2 that's already there. Remember here, we all had zeros there, but when we look at this, we had 10 that we're adding to this 2. So that's why we're looking at 12 now. 12 minus 9 is 3. And 8 minus 8 is 0. And bring your 1 down. So that would be your answer. All right, questions. So if I want to, I don't know, just playing around with notes. But questions before we go to the next one. Okay, so here we're just looking at sign numbers. If I have negative 23.9 plus 45.8, that's the same thing as 45.8 minus 23.9. As long as your 45.8 is positive and your 23.9 is negative, you still have the same equation or the same relationship as far as going to calculate. So we do 25.8 minus 23.9. Can't take 9 out of 8, so we have to borrow. And so that's why that 5 goes to 4, and then the 8 turns into 18. So 18 minus 9 is 9. Use a decimal. Then 4 minus 3 is 1. 4 minus 2 is 2. So if we're talking about what happened here, all right, questions? Any questions? All right, so here we have a negative 0.694 minus 0.482. So just emphasizing here, don't forget whenever you have same signs, you're going to add the numbers and keep the sign that you have. So we have negative 0.694 and a negative 0.482. So we'll just go ahead and add them together as if they were positive. So 4 plus 2 is 6. 9 plus 8 is 17, carry a 1. 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 1 is 11, carry your 1. And drop your 1 down because it's 1 plus 0. So you have 1.176. But because both of your numbers were negative, your final result should be negative as well. So don't forget your sign rules. Add, subtracting, multiplying, dividing with signed numbers. Don't forget those rules and how you should apply them. All right, so before we look at multiplying decimals, questions on adding and subtracting? All right. Yeah, that was 5-2. So we're looking at 5-3 now. I believe 5-3 and 5-4 is dividing. Let me check. Yep, 5-4 is dividing. All right, so let's look at multiplying first. I want to erase this stuff. All right, so we have 11.914 and 0.8 that we want to multiply. So we're going to multiply these numbers as if there were no decimals. So that's the first thing you do, ignore the decimals. So 8 times 4 is 32, carry 3. Also recognize we're not talking about placing your numbers according to the place value or the decimals. You only do that with adding and subtracting. You do not do that when it comes to multiplication and division. So right now we're going to multiply as if those decimals were not there. Once again, addition and subtraction, you have to line your numbers up according to place value and decimals. When you're talking about multiplying and dividing, you're really ignoring the decimal initially, and then you go through the process, and then we'll come back to our decimals. So 8 times 4 is 32, carry a 3. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3 is 11, carry a 1. 8 times 9 is 72, plus 1 would be 73, carry a 7. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 7 is 15, carry a 1. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9. All right, so you take your number and multiply it to the number, then add it to whatever's sitting over top. So now, as far as where the decimal goes, that's what I did over here. You recognize that there are 3 decimal places in the top number, 1 decimal place in the bottom number. Add them together, and that lets you know how many decimal places should be in your final answer. So it should be 4 decimal places. So it's 9.5312. So here's another way you could get, presented, a multiplication problem. Here they gave it to you this way. Here they give it to you this way. But we can still set it up vertically. In other words, 29.3 times 2.8. And let me erase this and we can walk through it. All right, so once again, you ignore the decimals until the end. So you're going to do 8 times 3, which is 24, carry your 2. 8 times 9 is 72, plus 2 is 74, carry your 7. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 7 is 23. Then you start one place value over, so because that's what you did in your actual problem. You're in the tens place now. And so you're starting off one place value over. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 9 is 18, carry your 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus that 1 that's up here. It's going to be 5. All right, so now you add up your numbers. 4 plus 0, let's go green. 4 plus 0 is 4. 4 plus 6 is 10, carry your 1. 8 plus 3 is 11, plus 1 is 12, carry your 1. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 1 is 8. Then we have one decimal place in our numerator, one in the, I said numerator, one decimal place in our top number, one decimal place in our bottom number. Add them together, we should have 2 decimal places in our final answer. Oh, somebody said something in the chat. Okay, cool. All right. Questions before we scroll up. Make sure we're all right. All right. Same type of deal here. We have 1.9 times 2.91. So once again, you ignore the decimals and you multiply accordingly. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 times 1 is 19. I said 19. 1 times 1 is 1. And that gives us 19 right here. Start one decimal place over. 9 times 9 is 81. Carry your 9. 9 times 1 is 9. Plus that 8 is 17. So you bring that 17 down. Go over 2 place values because in comparison to where we started, that's where we are now with the 2. So 2 times 9 is 18, carry your 1. And then 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 to give us this 3 right here. All right, add them together. 9 plus 0 is 9, 1 plus 1 is 2, 7 plus 8 is 15, carry your 1. 1, 1, and 3 will give you 5. And so we should have 3 decimals in our final answer. 1 decimal place in our top number, 2 in our bottom, and that'll give us 3 decimal places. All right, questions, any questions? I think the next thing is division. Oh, no, I'm still doing multiplication. right, so multiplying by a power of 10. So if we have, I probably could make that line a little more straight. So if we have 14.78 and we wanted to multiply by 10,000. So first thing you would do is count the number of zeros and then move the decimal to the right that many places. So if you multiply something by 10,000, of course, the number that you have as a result should be greater. If you were to move the decimal to the left, you would end up having a smaller answer. So once you move it to the right, if your number isn't greater than what you had initially, remember initially we have 14.78. If I'm multiplying it times 10,000, then I should have a greater number. And just saying that just so that we can have something to think about. You know, if you ever forget which way should I move my decimal, you know, in order for me to, if I multiply something by 10,000, it should be greater than what I originally had. So I have 4 zeros here. That's just telling me I need to move my decimal to the right 4 times. And that'll give me my result, 147,800. All right. Any problems? Okay, scrolling up. All right, so let's do this to divide it. So we have 0.0064, and we multiply that times 100. And so that's 2 zeros for us. So if you multiply by 100, we need to move our decimal to the right 2 spots. And that's 0.64.
Where do we get that number from?
Which one?
The 0.0064.
Oh, they gave it to you. All of this is given, and then you just have to, you know, what is the result?
So is that the answer for the 147,800?
Yep, this right here.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, not a problem. So that was a good question. So basically, they would just say, they would just give you this and say, you know, what's the result or what's the, you know, final answer. And then down here was that answer. You move your decimal 2 places to the, 4 places to the right. Same thing here. This is what they gave you. And so multiplied it out, we're moving the decimal 2 places to the right.
Oh, so it's a new equation. Okay, so that the above it is just done. That's it.
Yep, that's all. That's all they want from you.
Okay.
And so they're just expressing upon you what does it mean to multiply a number by a power of 10.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem. Let me see, do I have anything else out there? Yep. So the same thing happens here in this last one, 8.271 times 1 million. So 1 million has 6 zeros, and we're going to move the decimal 6 places to the right. All right. Any questions? All right, so when we multiply by powers of 0.1, the opposite effect takes place. You count the number of decimal places and you move the decimal to the left that many spots. So remember, this time we're counting the number of decimal places to the right of the decimal, not just zeros. So when we look at this one right here, 62.074, I have 4 decimal places here, So we're counting the 1 as well. So how many decimal places do you have to the right of that decimal? And so it's going to be 4 decimal places. And so that means I'm going to move my decimal to the right 4 spots. All right. So remember before, if we had 1,000, we're counting zeros. But here, because we have, we're looking at multiples of 0.1, we're counting decimal places. And so that result would be 0.0062074. And just like before, you use place values. Use zeros as placeholders. All right, we have this next one right here. We have 79, 65. Trying to erase something right here. 79, 65, 0.3, and we multiply times 0.1. And so it's just 0.1, so it's 1 decimal place. So we move the decimal to the left 1 spot. And that'll be 796.53. Then for the last one, as far as multiplication is concerned, we have 0.0057 times 0.00001. So that'll be 5 decimal places. So we move our decimal to the left 5 spots. And we're using those zeros as placeholders. So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros in front of that 57 behind that decimal. All right, any questions? Any questions? All right, so 5, 4 is dividing. So that's 5, 6. I put 5, 5 down here too. I have to check that. Okay, so let's look at dividing, and then we'll be done with these this decimal work. Because then we're looking at just solving equations. With 6.1. Yeah. So let's go ahead and divide. And let me erase this. All right, so looking at 30.55 divided by 13. Once again, they give it to you horizontally. But we'll do our setup this way. The number that follows the divisional sign should be on the outside of our long division. Set up a long division bar. So then you go through your long division process. 13 doesn't go into 3, but 13 goes into 30 2 times. 2 times 13 is this 26 right here. 30 minus 26 is 4. Bring down 5. Also, bring this decimal up. So that should line up with the decimal in your answer. All right, so 13 goes into 45 3 times. 3 times 13 is 39 right here. 45 minus 39 is 6. Bring down your 5. I guess I could have did that red as well. And then 13 goes in 65 5 times. 65 minus 65 is 0. So that's your answer. All right. All right, so next one, 3.5 divided by 4. So that's our long division setup. 4 doesn't go into 3. Going to put your decimal, but it goes into 35. 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. Now, if you want to know how far you should go out as far as decimals, because you know we can keep adding zeros to infinity if we wanted to, but how far you should go out, they will either let you know, or if they don't say anything about, stop at the hundreds place or stop at the tenths place, that means that it's going to end soon. So there is a short end to it, whether it be going out 2 decimal places, 3 decimal places, or even 4. Just go ahead and keep going until you finish. Now, if you get a run-on decimal, but they didn't give you any specific instructions, that means somewhere you went wrong in your math. So in other words, if you don't see an ending after 4 decimals, you start going 5, 6, and it didn't say round to the 10th place or round to the 100th place, then somewhere you went wrong in your math. Because if they don't tell you where to stop, then that means there should be a short end. So in this one, it says 3.5 divided by 4. I should expect an end, around 3 or 4 decimal places. So 32, like I said, 35 minus 32 gave us 3. Bring down your 0. Then 4 goes into 30. 3 times, no, 8 times. Let's go 7. Yep, 7 times 4, 28. Yep. Yeah, I don't even know. I wasn't even looking at my numbers down there. Okay, yeah, 4 times 7 is 28. And then 30 minus 28 is 2. And then bring down your 0 once again. 4 goes into 25 times. And then that would be your answer, 8.75. All right. Questions on the process. And so you see that we ended at the 3 decimal places. Once again, if they don't give you any special instructions, then you would anticipate ending between 3 and 4 decimal places. Once again, let me scroll up if someone's still writing. All right, cool. Here we have 1.7 divided by 30. So once again, you put that number that follows the division sign on the outside. And then we put this number on the inside of the non-division symbol. So we have 30 doesn't go into 1. So that's why we put the 0 right here. 30 doesn't go into 17. That's why we put the 0 right here. So the first number we look for 30 to go into is going to be 170. We add a 0 behind that 7. And so we see that 30 goes into 170 5 times. 5 times 30 is 150. Subtract those two, that gives you 20. And once again, they wouldn't have given us any directions here, extra directions, because you'll see in a minute what's going on. You go ahead and add a 0. I want to make these red. And bring it down. That gives you 200. 30 goes into 200 6 times, giving us 180. And 20 minus 180 is 20. But if you add a 0, that's 200 again. 30 goes into 200 6 times. It gives you 180, which gives us 200 again. So we see that we're going to have a repeated number of 6 to infinity. And the way you can represent that is either by these 3 dots, the ellipses, or using the bar over the 6. And be careful Do not extend this bar over 5 because then what you're saying is 56 is being repeated. So make sure that you extend that just over the 6, and that will be your answer. Any questions? All right, so next one, we have 0.56 divided by 0.7, excuse me. So now the difference between this one and what we dealt with up to this point is that we have a decimal in our, that's not a quotient, the dividend. Yeah, what a number that we're using to divide into. And so what we're going to do is use that value, and notice right here, we're going to move it however many times it takes to get to the end of the rightmost digit or to the right of the rightmost digit. And whatever we do to the outside over here, we do to the inside of this number. And that gives us this new problem of 7 into 5.6. We're dividing 7 into 5.6. So if that was 0.79, then I would have took it 2 places, to the right. And then under here, I would have took that 2 places to the right as well. However many decimals it take to move it to the right of the rightmost digit on the outside, you do the same thing to the number on the inside. Now you go ahead and divide. 7 doesn't go into 5, but it goes into 56 8 times. And your answer is 0.8. All right. So for this next one, we have 0.005, and we want to divide that into 3.1. Once again, you take this decimal, move it however many spots it takes to get to the right of the rightmost digit, and then do that same thing here. So it's 3 decimal places, so we move it 3 spots in both cases. And so that's how we have this new problem. And we're taking 5 and dividing it into 3100. So 5 goes into 31 6 times. 5 times 6 is 30. 31 minus 30 is 1. Bring down 0. That'll be 10. 5 goes into 10 2 times. And we have a 0 as a remainder. And so since we had another 0 left here, we bring that up top to give us an answer of 620. Any problems? All right, let's see what the next part is. We got a few minutes. Okay, so we can finish this off. Okay, so we want to round the quotient to the nearest tenth place. So here's a value, here's a problem wherein it's probably going to be a run-on decimal, and they're telling us to round to the tenth place. So now if we're going to round to the tenth place, that means we need to take our answer to the hundredth place, because remember, if we're going to round, we need the value to the right of that. So you're talking about 1.2357, just a random number here. This is my 10th place, but this is my 100th place. So if I'm going to round to the 10th place, I need this value to the 100th place, to the right of it, in order to be able to round. So looking at that 47.3 divided by 5.4, we need to take our decimal 1 place to the right because of the 5.4. So that gives us a new problem of 54 into 473. Yeah. So I already know I need to take my answer to the hundredth place. So I went ahead and put 2 zeros there because I know I'm not going to go any further than those two numbers. I don't need to because I need to round my answer to the 10th place. So you can use the decimals, not the decimals, you can use the directions to your advantage in that fashion, in which you know where you're going to stop. So you can go ahead and put your zeros there and just know you're stopping right there. So 54 doesn't go into 4, doesn't go into 47, but it goes into 473 8 times. 8 times 54 is 432. Subtract that and you get 41. Bring down your 0. And then we have 54 into 410. And that happens 7 times. So 7 times 54 is this 378. Do your subtraction. You know, borrow from the 10, from the 1, we should turn that into 10. Well, we have to borrow. We couldn't borrow from the 0. And then when we borrow from that 1, that turns into 0, leaving us with 10 on the right. But then I need to borrow again because 7 can't be taken out of that. So that's why we have two 10s up here. So 10 minus 8 is 2. 10 minus 7 is 3. And here we have 3 minus 3, which will give us 0. So 32, bring down your 0, that's 320. 54 goes into 320 5 times. So 5 times 54 would give us 270. So it's just the same long division process. I was just walking us through it. But now we have 8.75 as our answer, but we want to round it to the 10th place. So that 5 lets us know that we can take that 7 up to 8. So our answer would be 8.8. All right. Questions? Any questions? Everybody done? Let's see, we got one more. Oh, it's the same thing. But everybody done before we go down? All right. So it's 350. This is the same process. I can talk us through it. So here, 42.68 divided by 5.1. This time they want us to round to the hundreds place. So that means I'm going to take my answer to the thousands place. Remember, we need one decimal over in order to be able to round. So once again, if I'm going to round to the hundreds place, I need to take my answer to the thousands place, one decimal place to the right, so that I'll be able to do that. So I'm divided by 5.1. If that's the case, I need to take my decimal to the right one. That gives me the new problem of 51 into 426.8. So I need to take my answer to the thousandth place. So I add these 2 zeros here. So I have 3 decimal places. I already had the 8 there. So I put 2 zeros there to know where I'm going to stop. And then I will go through the long division process. 51 goes into 426 8 times. 8 times 51 is 408. Do my subtraction. That gives me 18 right here. Bring down the 8. So now 51 goes into 188 3 times. 3 times 51 is 153. Do your subtraction. That will give us 35. Then bring down 0. So we're looking at 51 going into 350. 350. And that happens 6 times. 6 times 51 is 306. Subtract those two numbers, 350 and 306. Get 44. That last 0, bring it down, that's 440. And 51 goes to 440 8 times, which gives us 408. Subtract those, that's 32. But we got our answer right here, which is 8.368. Now we need to round to the hundreds place. And so that 8 behind the 6 tells me I can take that 6 to a 7, which gives me the answer of 8.37. All right. So that's adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing decimals. So make sure you try the stuff out. If you get stuck, always feel free to bring questions to the class, and we'll knock them out. Or if you want to set up a Zoom session outside of class, then let me know, and we can do it. Any questions before we close out? Everybody good? Everybody straight?
I came in late, so I was just wondering, did I miss anything?
No, we just did it. Got into. We started at 5.2, so we just did add, subtract, and multiply, and divide decimals.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem. All right. Well, you guys have a great weekend. Be safe. I'll see you on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good one.